Alright everyone, Adam here again. So, I am making, a second video in the same night because I'm doing this thing where I'm batching them together, making a bunch of videos all at once, that way I have them ready for the rest of the week. So, a topic that I love to talk about, that I love to get, love to get my gears grinding, is good exercises and bad exercises. It's kind of like how we have the concept of good food and bad food, which I also hate. I've probably talked about that before. Honestly, I've made so many videos at this point I can't remember. But good exercises and bad exercises. I think that it is silly when trainers will say, oh, you should never do this exercise, you should never do that exercise, or, conversely, you should always do this exercise, always do that exercise. So, for example, I talked recently about how I haven't been squatting in a long time, and I was talking about how my friend Jason Helms wrote a book about how he hasn't been squatting in a long time. He still made some pretty awesome development in his legs. So have I. And immediately all these people come out of the woodwork like, no, you could build much better legs if you had just squatted. You should have squatted. You absolutely have to squat to build good legs. Yeah, certainly there are some exercises that are generally more applicable and useful than others. That doesn't mean that they're applicable for everybody. That doesn't mean that they're perfect for everybody. Some people have issues. They really just can't squat. Some people's hip sockets are not designed for them to squat deep. They just can't do it. And at that point, trying to make them squat deep would be silly. It would be a waste of time. It would be bad. It would be detrimental to them in the long run. So, am I going to make someone, a client like that squat? No, of course not. I'm going to find alternatives. I'm going to, make them leg press, leg extensions, lunges, all kinds of other options. Now, conversely, I hate it when a trainer or a coach will say, this exercise has no purpose, this exercise should never be used, there's no applicability whatsoever. Stuff like, people hate on machine work, people hate on the Smith machine, people hate on functional exercise, stuff like, Bosu balls, balance exercises, stability stuff, etc. Stuff that's, aimed at changing your posture. Again, in the same vein, there are certainly exercises which are more or less applicable than others. There are exercises that are very silly. There are exercises that have very little applicability and are used way more than they should be. I'm talking to you, functional exercise. All that balance stuff is not useful for most people. If you're a normal, healthy person with a good sense of balance, chances are you don't need to do that kind of training, and it's going to be less beneficial because it's less specific than, whatever other kind of training you could use. Again, that doesn't mean that it's not applicable. That doesn't mean that it's not useful. For every person, there is such a wide variety of people out there, and these are, you've got all these different tools in your toolbox. Each different machine, each different exercise, each different tool that you have is something different that you can do. And if something doesn't work out, if someone can't squat, like I said, for example, again, am I going to hate on the leg press machine or the leg extension machine because they're machines? No, because you can still build muscle with them. Is it going to make you really good at squatting if that's what you're trying to do? Well, probably not, because you need to squat for that. Is it going to make you an elite class, football player? Is it going to make you an elite sprinter? I don't know, maybe. The carryover may not be as good. It's hard to tell. But the point is that you can't just overlook specific tools and say that they're completely useless and no one should ever do them. There's certain exercises that may or may not put people at a greater injury risk than others. Like stuff like the, behind the neck presses and behind the neck pull downs. Are those going to be useful for a lot of people? Probably not. They, probably very minimal applicability. But does that mean you should never do them? Well, not really. There's certainly probably at least someone out there in the world that they could really help. And again, if other options are limited, then try new things, try different things, try all sorts of things, try whatever you can do. It's just tools. It's just tools in your toolbox. It's just pieces of equipment that you can use. It's just approaches you can take. And again, to say something is completely useless or, just you should never, ever, ever, ever use it. I mean, and don't take this out of context. Don't say that, like, you're like, okay, well, what if, we like took like a 2,000 pound, weight and just dropped it on your leg. Like, well, that's not an exercise, man. Like, don't nitpick me over this. But the point is that the vast, like, you see all these articles and all these different blogs and websites and whatever that are like, oh, don't do this, or you absolutely have to do this, or, like, things that you must try. It's like, oh, come on, man. You could say, yeah, like, here are some new exercises you may not have seen before. Awesome. Great. But don't do this necessary or completely unnecessary thing. Don't make them out to be different than what they really are. So, that is it for today. As always, like, comment, share, tell me what you want to see in future videos. I will talk to you guys next time. Have a good night.